Hi, everybody. It's time for Just a Thought. This is our Saturday discussion that I, Durrell Watkins, the Senior Minister of Sunshine Cathedral, have with the Reverend Cindy Lippert, who is one of the co-founders of Sage Coaching and Counseling. And you can learn about them at sagecoachingandcounseling.com. They offer business coaching and life coaching and spiritual counseling and psychotherapy and probably some other things. So they've got a staff of professionals, clinicians, ministers, business professionals, just waiting to help you, especially during this time when there's a lot of uncertainties. And especially for the spiritual counseling, those who are unable to pay right now, that is not a deterrent. They will work something out. So don't let a temporary lack of resources keep you from getting the help you need. So that's sagecoachingandcounseling.com. Well, we are here to do what we do on Saturday. Spend a few minutes, 20 minutes or so, 25, 40 if Cindy gets really wound up, discussing a thought. And today's thought comes from Ram Dass. Ram Dass was a fascinating figure. I believe Cindy dated him in the 60s, no? And
70s, 70s, yeah.
Which I only recently learned he was bisexual. Did you know that?
Well, that explains a lot to me.
Right?
Yeah.
So he had a PhD from Stanford. He was a psychologist and experimented with and wrote about LSD. Controversial. It was legal at the time, but still controversial. And he taught at Harvard until he didn't. And then he went to India. I don't know if it was meant to be a spiritual pilgrimage, but it wound up being a spiritual pilgrimage. And he found a guru who gave him his spiritual name, Ram Dass, and which I believe means servant of God. And then he came back to the US and spent the rest of his life as a spiritual teacher, giving public lectures, holding retreats, writing books. He at some point had a stroke and described it as being a radical grace. And he built himself back up from that, had to relearn how to speak, but he did. And he continued to travel for a while. That became difficult. So he moved to Hawaii and people would come visit him. And he would still do retreats and write and blog for a long time. So he's sort of a fascinating person. He was born into a Jewish family. He abandoned all of that, of course, and became Hindu. But when he was 60, he started studying his former religion, Judaism, a little bit, just to understand it better. He said that a Hindu belief was you were born into the situation that you sort of needed to figure yourself out. And so he said if he needed to be born into a Jewish family, he wanted to know more about it so that he could, complete his assignment, as it were. So even though he remained a Hindu teacher, he also, at the age of 60, started reconnecting or restudying, at least in an academic way, with his Jewish roots. So Ram Dass is sort of a fascinating character. We now know that he was bisexual, and he late in life discovered that he had a child and grandchild. That all happened as the result of a casual affair. I'm not sure it was more than a one-night stand, probably in the 60s. So anyway, fascinating Ram Dass. And here is his thought that we're gonna ponder today. We are all affecting the world every moment. We are all affecting the world every moment, whether we mean to or not. Our actions and states of mind matter. Our actions and states of mind matter because we're interconnected with one another. One more time. We are all affecting the world every moment, whether we mean to or not. Our actions and states of mind matter because we're interconnected with one another, says the late Ram Dass. I don't know that you have to be Ram Dass to figure that out, though. It's our interconnection seems more and more obvious to me as life goes on, that how the suffering of one group sort of makes us all suffer. One justice on the Supreme Court dies after a long life well lived, and the world mourns because she touched so many people, Justice Ginsburg. There are fires in Australia, and we collectively feel the pain. A year or two later, there are fires throughout the Western United States, and we collectively feel the pain. Um, somebody gets sick in one province in the world, and a few months later, the world has a pandemic. So our interconnection seems obvious now, and yet it's still news to us when we hear some great spiritual teacher remind us, I think.
Well, today on social media, it's referred to as influencers. It's the same thing, but they've monetized it. And some people quit their day jobs because they've been able to monetize it to the point that it supports their lifestyle. We do influence each other. Social media is a great opportunity for us to influence each other.
Right.
It's also a burden to make sure that the way we influence each other is respectful, ethical, in integrity, and with kindness and care, and with forethought of how our influence will impact. Every minister gets at the pulpit and looks out at the crowd and knows they're standing before a group of vulnerable, hearts open individuals that are waiting to feel better, feel different, be inspired, be uplifted. And the minister knows that responsibility weighs heavy, not only just what is said, but also how it's received. We can only take responsibility so far. We can't always be responsible for how a thing might be received.
Right.
But if our intention is pure, then, you know, we hope for the best.
We learn to detach from the outcome.
Right.
I want a thing, and I have an intention, and I have a plan, and I have a wish, and I have a desire, and then I have to let go and let things unfold. And they may happen exactly like I wanted, or they may unfold differently. And I have to wait till the end to see how wonderful that really was. But you can't do that if you're attached to how it has to come out.
Well, let's think about that for a second, though. When we say I'm just gonna say it how I feel, and I'm detached from the outcome, it might be pretty harmful. You know, cult leaders are a good example of being detached to their outcome. Obviously, they don't care how it might affect all kinds of people for different reasons. So we have to, I know, when I've heard that, and we've all heard it, you know, detach from the outcome. But what does that really mean? And what is our responsibility in what we're delivering and what we're saying?
Well, in our prayers, I think we have to detach from the outcome, because we have to admit that we don't have control over it. In our interpersonal relationships, we have intent and impact.
Right.
And we need to acknowledge when the impact was different than our intent.
Right.
And that's when apologies come in order. And that's when, you know, that's when we have to make amends or take responsibility for things, because almost no one ever intends to be mean. I mean, there are exceptions. There are people who are broken or whatever, but mostly we never intend to hurt people, and yet we do. And so our intent may be at least neutral, maybe pure, but at least neutral. But the impact is not always neutral.
That's true.
And we have to be careful even about how we correct each other about the impact. For instance, there's a lot, just yesterday, because it happened so suddenly, there's a lot of discussion on the social medias, on the interwebs, some people grieving in their way for Justice Ginsburg. And maybe they say, oh, you know, heaven has another angel or something, or rest in peace, or, you know, whatever. Let light perpetual shine upon her, all the things that they may say from their tradition. Well, then here comes someone else reminding those people fairly. She was Jewish, and the Jewish blessing for these times are may her memory be a blessing.
Right.
And so let's honor her tradition and not impose our things on her. Fair enough. And I may not know that, and I'm grieving the way I know how to grieve, and I'm expressing kindness the way I know how to express kindness. So now you're trying to make me sensitive has just hurt my feelings and made me feel inept, and on it goes. And so it's a delicate balance of how do we hold each other accountable but do so lovingly,
Yeah.
and how do we instruct each other without being arrogant, and it's that we influence each other, that we impact each other, that we leave a footprints on each other's lawns is just obvious. It's just
Well, right. And there's another thought too, Durrell, and this is from a lot of the old time metaphysicians, that if you're not specific, that if you just totally detach, and your affirmation is this or something better, the old time metaphysicians will say, then you get the universe leftovers.
right.
So when you're
Yeah.
saying it's a fine path that we walk with our intention, our integrity, what we say, what we intend, and well, I meant well. Yeah, but you didn't do well.
Right.
Sorry. Meaning well is not enough. It just isn't.
The and to the be specific in your prayers, the and to that is
Mhm.
I'm only as evolved as I am. And so when I am being specific, I want this way. If I could see a bigger view, I might want something better. I might demand something better. And so some metaphysicians say there's a law of grace where the universe knows we are painting a picture of the best we know, but the universe also knows that there's even better, and so responds to our intention to have the best and not to our limitation of what we on that moment thought was the best.
Okay, but here's the problem. We haven't evolved to the something better. Okay, have you ever had an opportunity that you weren't up to, that you were not, it was there, but you were not prepared for it? There's nothing worse.
Oh,
There is
maybe
nothing worse.
maybe the first 40 years of my life, every good thing I think that I accomplished was my second or third attempt, because
Right.
I have false starts. I would do
Yeah.
something too soon or accept too much.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you get a thing that you don't have the consciousness for, uh,
Right.
you might not be able to keep it.
That's why this or something better is false, in my view, in my humble opinion. Don't give me more than I am ready to do my best with. You can't give, okay, here's the old
Half of New
saying.
Thoughters, and I don't know, I'm doing a good job. I'm trying to
Yeah.
represent you. Half of New Thoughters disagree with you.
Of course they do. That's why I am Cindy.
And the other half think that you have just spoken the wisest words ever
Of
uttered.
course. And those are my people. Those are my people. No, and there is nothing better, a greater example of this than in the profession of acting. You can get, oh man, you could get an audition for a guest star role. You could. If you're not up to it, if you've never had any experience in all those steps up to that point, even if you got it, even if your cousin was the producer and director and cast you just because you're the beloved cousin, you're going to screw it up because you're not ready for it. So don't give me more than I'm ready for. And may I endeavor every day to be a greater voice and a bigger influence, but not more than I'm ready for, because number one, you embarrass yourself. Number two, you've squandered that influence. They'll never call you again. You don't want this or something better. You want what you have the consciousness for, and it's up to each one of us to develop our consciousness to the best of our ability.
The affirmation by Emile Coué is one that I use a lot. It's very helpful. Day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And so whenever I realize that I'm not where I want to be in an area, I'm not the sort of person, some people are, but I'm not the sort of person who can say, I am a thing that all evidence suggests I am not. But I can say I'm getting there. I can say I'm on my way. I can say day by day in every way I'm getting. Like some people with integrity, with truth, with power can sit in their hovel and say I am a grillionaire. And if that works for them, keep doing that.
Yep.
I would feel silly. I would have doubts. That would distract me. And now I'm off. Now I'm not plugged in at all. So I would have to sit in my hovel and say, I deserve better than this hovel. I am working my way out of this hovel. I am well on my way to something much, much better. That seems to work for me. Other people, they just know they are living in Buckingham Palace and they're just going to say it. But
it works for you because every day you are getting better. Every day you are working on a level that is creating and emerging your best self now. For someone to say that is still laying on the couch, eating popcorn, watching Looney Tunes, I'm sorry. Nothing's going to change until something changes. When you are a change agent, when you are working every day to be a better human being, that change is inevitable and is emerging now.
I do think our affirmations have to feel true, though.
Yes.
And so some people, like, they just feel like I am, they're attached to oxygen and IVs, but they're saying they see in their mind, I'm an athlete, I'm perfectly healthy. They see it, they feel it, so that is true for them. Other people, they're really, really aware of those tubes, and so they have to come at it at a different angle.
But Durrell, what I'm saying, and I'm interrupting you, what I'm saying is it's okay to see yourself as the Olympian if you are doing Olympian tasks every day to train your body to get there. It is ridiculous to be in, like you said, homeless, whatever, and say, I'm a grillionaire. It's ridiculous.
And that's the other thing, though, that it needs to feel true. So if I'm in the gym training, then it's starting to feel true.
There you go.
I'm not there yet, but I'm in the gym. So I'm day by day, everywhere I'm getting better because it's starting to feel true. Or even if I say, oh, I am an Olympiad. Okay, well, I'm in the gym with the other Olympiads, so maybe it feels true. When people say things that are empty, that's when I think they get disappointed because there was never any power in it to begin with.
Right.
I remember sometimes I've heard people say this, and they mean well. They think it's charming and they think it's encouraging, but you give them a gift, and they'll say, "Oh, may this come back to you a zillion fold." Well, first of all, what is a zillion? You haven't told me anything. You haven't said anything that my mind comprehends.
Right.
I'm just glad to know that whatever I gave you, that you liked it, and that's going to serve a good purpose. That's blessing enough for me. And if something great comes back to me, also, yay, better, frosting on the cake. But what is a zillion? I don't even know what a zillion is. I don't even know how many zeros are in a zillion. So you really haven't wished me anything that my consciousness recognizes, and probably yours either.
Well, I'm reminded of, there was a Course in Miracles group years ago in a distant state. And the woman who was hosting it had her husband.
Hey, wait a minute. We're on opposite coasts. What's a distant state for us?
Well, north of you, quite north.
Okay.
Quite north. Okay. Anyway, distant state from both of us. How's that?
Okay.
Anyway, her husband was in the back study and had a heart attack, and they had to call 911, and they carried him out, and he, eventually passed. It was pretty dramatic. So the Course in Miracles people were all sitting there quietly while all this was going on, and praying and affirming, the highest and best and whatever. And one was very upset. The wife obviously was very upset, and the minister just looked at her and said, "God's in the midst of this, and all is well." And it was one of the cruelest things that I'd ever witnessed. That's what
really came off an asshole.
Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, God was in the midst of that. That is true. God is in the midst of everything all the time. All was not well. She was in shock.
Right.
And that needed to be affirmed. Her feelings needed to be affirmed. She needed to be embraced and held and understood that this was this was what it was and that we were there supporting her. But
Right.
to say the opposite, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That his or her intention may have been to take away their pain, but you can't take away pain. People have to work through their pain. They have to feel their pain. They have to heal from their pain. And what he or she said to that poor woman was, your pain is insignificant.
Right.
Your pain does not measure up to my opinion. And that's
Right.
probably not their intent, but that was the impact. And that was cruel in that super fragile moment.
This is what I call spiritual arrogance. And to my New Thought colleagues that don't agree with me, that's fine. But I'm just putting forward that we need to check ourselves. We quote a lot of this stuff without understanding how it impacts those who know nothing about what we're teaching. How does that really come off? Does it make us look ridiculous, or is it profound wisdom?
Yeah. Well, we are interconnected. Our words wound or heal. You know, our actions matter. And you think it's insignificant, but it isn't. A nice little lady in Arkansas in the 80s. Oh my gosh, she can't still be on the planet. Not in that form, right? And but she's one of the first people I met. The first little metaphysical group I ever found was a little Unity church in this little rural town. And she was a core, maybe she was on the board. She was a core person in this little church. And I remember telling her I had some issues, some 18, 19-year-old drama, and I was praying about it, and it wasn't getting much better. And so I said to her, I'm praying so hard and it's not getting better. And she just said, well, I never pray hard. I always pray easy. And you know what? I don't remember anything else that woman ever said in my presence, but I will never forget that line. And I tell myself all the time now, if I'm ever struggling, I'm like, you know what? Pray easy.
Right.
Relax. And that has helped me so much in the 40 years that followed that, 35 years that followed that. So she had no idea that one sentence would be an encouragement to someone for decades thereafter. And now I'm telling the story, maybe that's going to encourage someone else. Yeah. We were that interconnected. She didn't even say I was wrong for praying hard. She didn't say I was stupid for praying hard. She didn't say hard prayers never work. She just said, I always pray easy.
Yeah. Well, I've often wondered when people say, oh, pray hard. It's like, who are you trying to convince?
Yeah.
You or God? Just a question.
Multiple choice, pencils down. So yeah, it's true. And we've talked on the show before that years and years ago, I was having a mental health crisis. Got the therapy and medication I needed, but in the meantime, I needed support. You're a person I called. You really didn't know me from Adam's House Cat, but took the call. If you had just said, you know what, I'm not qualified for this, I'm retired, I've got my own issues. I mean, I probably would have found someone else, but I didn't have to. because you took the call. You just never know. The one thing you do that's going to make a huge, because we're that interconnected. And why the whole world, I mean, I know a lot of people, you weren't like the 10th person I ever met in life. Why did I call you? Like, why are connections made? Why do ideas happen? Why do you share what you share? And yet they make a huge difference because we're all interconnected. What you say, what you think, what you feel, what you do. And you just may think, well, I have this little job, or I have this little family, or I live in this little neighborhood. And you may blow that off because we live in a celebrity culture, where I'm not on, I'm not on Dancing with the Stars, so who am I? And we forget that in another time, we would have had a different judgment. We'd say, oh, they're on Dancing with the Stars. Who are they? Like those kind of shows weren't for real stars. No, they are. Even in the 50s, people were loving television, but in the industry, there was this sort of snobbery that, oh, TV is for has-been vaudevillians and movie stars.
Right. Yeah.
Vaudeville died, and these especially women aren't young enough to be ingenues anymore on the screen. Thank God for television. Well, now, you just are living to, be on somebody's television show. So attitudes change. but that your thoughts, your attitudes, what you do, they impact. Apparently, just what so many people watch TV, and TV is so much part of the culture that it changed our regard for TV.
Yeah.
We love us some TV. We love TV so much we don't even limit it to TV anymore. We now, TV is now on our phone. That TV has become ubiquitous. We don't need a television set to have television because of the internet. So we loved it that much, and we manifested ubiquitous television because we're interconnected, and that's the power we have.
Yeah.
You got something else? Because when you run out and I run out, we go back to Ram Dass.
Okay. I think Ram Dass has the final word. I've probably said more than I should have.
You said the right amount, I think. And just again, I covered this in midday prayer, but we do bless the memory of Justice Ginsburg, who served until her very last day on the planet, served the people, and championed causes of women's rights and voters' rights and civil rights. Was a friend to the LGBTQ plus community. She is one of the reasons that I am legally married today, and she was apparently able to work very congenially with people who had different views than hers. One of the person who always sort of voted differently than she did on the court was one of her best friends, and they would go to the opera together and dinner together. And so someone who is that kind and that present, and then also that devoted to her causes, she is certainly someone whose words and actions impacted a lot of people. So we bless her memory and give thanks for her life. Well, we conclude with how we started. Ram Dass, we are all affecting the world every moment, whether we mean to or not. Our actions and states of mind matter because we're interconnected with one another. It's just a thought, but I think it's a good one. Thanks, Cindy. Let's do it again next week.
Okay.
Thanks to everyone else. God bless you.